APIA Nevada is a grassroots nonprofit organization that advocates for policies empowering everyday Asian Pacific Islander Nevadans. Nevada is home to a growing APIA community, accounting for 1 in 10 voters. We are One APIA Nevada. Tonight's episode of Out in Front is brought to you by our season sponsors, Nevada State Education Association, One APIA Nevada, Silver State Voices, and Stefan and Marta Schmidt.
You know, speaking of legacies, I've heard recently that Annette Magnus has decided she's going to retire from Battleborn Progress after this session. I hated to hear that. We all owe Annette a debt of gratitude for what she's done to educate the public, successfully advocate for important causes, and keep the progressive agenda at the forefront of Nevada politics. Godspeed, Annette. We'll miss you.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Out in Front with Battleborn Progress, previously Out in Front with Annette. As you all know, tomorrow is Annette Magnus's last day with Battleborn Progress after 10 incredible, insane years where she fought hard for so many causes and so many issues and mentored and guided so many young folks in this progressive movement. We're really going to miss her. As you saw in that video, so is Congresswoman Dina Titus, and so are a lot of people in this movement. She's touched so many lives and started so many careers, helped out so many folks in their careers, and we're just really, really going to miss her and work to honor her legacy here at BBP as she moves on to bigger and better things. I'm going to bring on Amber from our team, who is also going to be one of our guests tonight before we dig into our conversation to say a little bit about Annette as well.
Thank you so much, Shelby. I am super happy to be with everyone. I'm actually the acting communications director with BBP and IPN right now. And I would love to say a few words about Annette. I am very honored that I was able to learn so much from her and also work with her for the last 4 years. She's been incredible as a mentor and also a wonderful guide in legislative work and policies and gun work and pretty much every issue that we work on. So I want to wish her all the best. I'm very, very happy that she's going to take some time to breathe and to hopefully reset, as this work can be very challenging, as many of you know. So I wish her all the best, and I'm excited to see what the future brings for her.
Yeah, she and Nick are going to go ride the Autobahn and do all the awesome things that she did not have time to do before while she was working so hard here in Nevada. I'm going to also bring in our Deputy Director, Maria Teresa. Nobody has worked with Annette longer or more closely than Maria. So I'm going to leave it to her to say a few closing words about Annette and her legacy.
Yes. Hi, Shelby. I hope everybody can hear me. I have a history with OBS, which is what we use to send this out to you all, of echoing and sounding like I'm in a cave when I'm running this as well. And I'm getting the thumbs up, so I figured it out. All the clicking I just did while people talked worked. I am very sad that Annette is leaving us, but very happy why she's doing it, because she needs a break. If you've ever worked with Annette, you know she never met a 100% vacation. She was always, this was her life's work, and these were her babies, BBP and IPN. And the people that work here, especially the young ones like Shelby and Brian, are the babies. And so even when she was out on a quick vacation in between elections or sessions, she was always checking in on things. She was the epitome of a leader that just was there for their organization. And I'm trying not to say anything extremely emotional so I don't start crying, but I'm really going to miss working with her every single day, because like Amber said, it was an honor to work with her, to learn from her, especially as a female leader. I don't think there's a lot of female leaders that are like her. She taught me how to be extremely direct, but also extremely vulnerable and extremely okay with being imperfect, and that's okay. And just an added bonus that she is someone that really talked a lot about mental health in the work that we do, in the work of politics, which is really tough. And I don't think we talk a lot about. If you've been friends with her on Facebook or have seen it on Twitter, she's very open about it, and has really, I think, helped a lot of people, both that work in this and that are volunteers in this, to accept that sometimes it's okay to not be okay, and that we are all imperfect and perfection is not real no matter how much we try, and that it's okay and you can learn and you can keep going. And I'm going to miss her very, very much, but I'm sure we're going to see her around. And like I told her the last time I was with her, oh my God, the last time I was with her at the legislature, I said, you're going to be here in the next session, don't lie. Not in this role, but in another role. She's going to be doing something, and she's going to be up there haunting people's dreams or making them happen. But yeah, I'm very happy that I've gotten a chance to work with her.
Thank you so much, Maria. Very, very much. And now that I have to host Out in Front, I realize what big shoes we have to fill in general here at this organization, but also in hosting Out in Front, because I need to hone my skills to get more like Annette. All right, folks, let's dig into the topic that we are covering today. I'll go ahead and just reintroduce myself. I'm Shelby Swartz. I'm here from Battleborn Progress, and today we're digging into an issue that is very important to Nevadans, abortion access. On June 24th, 2022, a little bit over a year ago, the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision overturned Roe v. Wade, putting abortion access in the crosshairs nationwide. And in the year since, abortion bans and restrictions have been enacted in 14 states, with another 6-week ban in South Carolina currently blocked by the courts. Here in Nevada, we're so lucky to have leaders that respect the right to abortion care and reproductive freedom. In this recent legislative session, Senate Majority Leader and my senator, Senator Nicole Cannizzaro, introduced SB 131 to codify Governor Steve Sisolak's executive order to protect abortion providers, even as they provide services to folks coming to Nevada from out of state. She also introduced SJR 7, a resolution which would amend the state constitution to include protections for reproductive freedom, including, and this is a long list, the right to abortion, birth control, prenatal care, childbirth, postpartum care, vasectomies, tubal ligations, miscarriage management, and infertility care. This goes way beyond simply the access to abortion that we've worked so hard to protect here. So both passed, both houses, and SB 131 was actually signed into law by Governor Lombardo. We were very pleased to see that. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring in our fabulous guests who have joined us tonight. We are joined by Maria Nieto-Orta, a board member from Wild West Access Fund of Nevada, and I'm repping one of your shirts tonight. We have Brianna Escamilla, the Director of Regional Organizer from Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada. We have our very own Amber Falgo, our Interim Communications Director from BBP. And then we're also joined, I'm very excited, by Abigail Jackson, the Communications Manager from our neighbor and fellow Progress Now affiliate, Progress Arizona. Thank you all so much for joining me. Brianna, I'm going to go to you. Just talked about all of these bans that are popping up around the country in the wake of the Dobbs decision. And I think something like 36 million people are living in states that have or are likely to have an abortion ban. So what can states that have not yet implemented comprehensive healthcare protections and abortion protections learn from the successes that we've had here in Nevada?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I'm excited to talk about this. So you are right. A lot of folks are living currently in states that have banned abortion care or have instituted partial bans. I think it's up to 20 states at this point that have done that. And in this last legislative session across the nation, state legislators have introduced over 340 bills to restrict abortion care. So this is really where the fight for abortion access is happening, and that's at state legislatures and in state governments, especially since the Dobbs decision. It is really dependent on who is in your state legislature and who your governor is, what your access to care is. So what we have done in Nevada, thankfully, we were in a good spot after the fall of Roe just because of the fact that abortion rights in Nevada were already statutorily protected because of the work that activists did in the 90s to make sure that these rights were statutorily protected. But what we are doing now is we are pushing that further, and we are moving forward a lot of proactive legislation to make sure that these rights are enshrined in our constitutions. Like you talked about, Shelby, SJR 7, which would amend the Constitution to protect all of those rights of reproductive freedom. Taking that proactive step, because we know that we can't control what's going to happen in the future and who is potentially in power in the future. And we want to make sure that it is very, very difficult to roll back any of these rights in Nevada. So states, and I know that this is happening across the nation, states where it's possible are trying to push through proactive legislation, and then other states that aren't as lucky as we are in terms of the makeup of our state legislature are really fighting back against all of these restrictive pieces of legislation.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And jumping off of that, Abigail from Progress, Arizona, our neighbor, can you shed some light on the recent 15-week abortion ban that y'all have in Arizona and its impact on folks seeking reproductive care in our neighboring state?
Yeah, absolutely. So the 15-week ban has definitely placed an incredible burden on people who can become pregnant, not only because of the ban itself, but due to the confusion that came after this law was signed by our previous governor. So this bill was signed into law in 2022, and it's a 15-week ban that has no exceptions for victims of rape or incest, and hits any physicians who break the law with a low-level felony. But after Roe was overturned, we weren't sure if this law, the 15-week ban, was going to become the law of Arizona or if a Civil War era total ban that was on the books since before Arizona was a state was going to be in place. And during that time, just the amount of confusion and legal battles definitely prevented people from getting the care they needed. It caused delays and hardships for patients, for clinics, and for providers. There was even a period of time where the total ban was in effect before the courts ruled that the 15-week ban would be the law. And since the fall of Roe and the 15-week ban has gone into place, more Arizonans have been denied abortion care in Arizona than in 45 other states. So this ban has definitely made Arizonans less safe, and it's created an environment where misinformation and disinformation by anti-abortion actors has become more rampant.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And we definitely feel for y'all here in Nevada. Speaking of an organization that works to help folks like those in Arizona that need to seek care, y'all provide direct services. One, tell us a little bit about the work that Wild West Access Fund does. I know it's different than kind of the policy work that we tackle here at BBP and IPN. And then can you share, within reason, right? No violating anybody's privacy, but the folks that you and the team at WWAF are helping access that care?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelby. I think that's a really great question. I think, first of all, we're very thankful, obviously, for one of us to be able to be out here and be able to talk a little bit about the Wild West Access Fund. So the Wild West Access Fund started in June of 2021 because our co-founders believed that, as you know, everyone on this call, and I hope everyone watching us too, believe that everyone should have the final say in their own reproductive rights, and that obviously the power resides in our own communities. So within a week of starting, the fund had raised over $1,000 from grassroots supporters. Today, our team obviously is pro-abortion and believes that there should be no stigma in the choice to terminate a pregnancy. A little bit of what we've done. So since Dobbs, we've mobilized to assist abortion seekers from all over the country. We have had just in this last year 1,040 requests, and our average grant size is around $200. The supports that we are able to provide is financial assistance to those that are not able to afford an abortion. Abortion is so expensive, right? And I think that in my personal opinion, not the fund's opinion, I believe that sometimes abortion is a privilege, right? It's a privilege to those that are able to afford it, but it should be a right to everybody. We also do transportation help, lodging, info, and follow-ups. From our network that we are a big part of, we have but the network itself has gotten 19.5 million in abortion funds. That's a lot of money, right? But once again, like, let's just put in perspective that abortions are so expensive, especially for someone that's traveling out of state, because now we have to put the lodging and we have to put like an Uber if they're not driving their own car. And after an abortion, your body is very impacted and you shouldn't even be driving. So then they're also having that risk. And then our network has also done around 116,000 requests received and 80,000 callers supported. And a little bit more about the Wild West Fund. We have volunteers on a daily basis that answer calls, answer requests from folks, like I said, all over the country, really. And without violating anyone's privacy, like, a lot of the folks that we're helping are BIPOC people, right? Like, those are the people that don't have easier access to abortion. Those are the people that are needing the financial requests, are needing someone to really walk them through. And I think one of my biggest things really has been, like, sometimes people of color just need to be heard, right? Like, they just need someone to hear them out. They just need someone to answer their phone. And that's what we do.
And we are so grateful for the work that y'all are doing to help folks coming to Nevada or here in Nevada who need abortion care. It really is just the most meaningful work. Amber, I want to go to you, and this is not a question that you received in advance, so I am sorry. Earlier today, we were talking about how, yes, we have, great abortion protections here. There's still work to be done, obviously. But an issue that we do face here in the state is access in terms of the number of providers that we have. Can you speak a little bit about that and what that experience is like? And Maria as well, feel free to hop in because I know y'all work directly with providers. Brianna, I know you work for Planned Parenthood. So if anybody else wants to touch on this question too, go ahead. But Amber, I know we were just talking about this, so I'm going to start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shelby. Access is a huge problem, right? So especially, I think here in Nevada, we are a very large state. But here up in the north, we have one provider. I believe there are some talks and there's some movement to increase the number of providers up here through organizations like Planned Parenthood, which is wonderful. But for example, when I had my abortion in 2017, I was told they had a really long wait list. Luckily, I was early because, of course, there's only one provider. But I was told if I wanted to get it done faster, I could go to Sacramento or San Francisco, which is in the Bay Area, which I considered briefly. But for some of the reasons that we have talked about, I did not want to have to drive back after having that procedure done. So I chose to wait. Luckily, I was in a situation where I could wait. Not every person is in that situation when they are seeking abortion access. And that is part of the problem with having a limited number of providers in the state. And especially when you think about where Reno is, we are positioned in the upper portion of the state. We're 8 hours, 7 hours from Vegas, sometimes 6 if you really fly. And that clinic really provides coverage for the entire top half of the state. So all of the rural areas. And so that it creates a situation where if we don't have enough access, we can work on the policies and make sure we protect abortion rights and abortion access and all of those things for all people who are seeking those services. But if we don't have access, what good are those rights? We cannot have those rights if when you need that procedure, you aren't able to get it in time. So that is something I definitely think we need to focus on and try and encourage more providers, encourage more clinics, so there is more access for people, so people are not having to wait. And I can't even imagine what that wait is like now, because when I had mine, that was prior to the Dobbs decision and prior to people traveling to Nevada for abortion services. So.
And Brianna, not to put you on the spot, but I know that there was the possibility of another Planned Parenthood clinic opening in Nevada in or near West Wendover, I believe. And that was struck down. I'm not sure if that's something that you can speak to.
That's not something that I can speak to at this time. And also that is something that is through the affiliate that serves Northern Nevada, which is Planned Parenthood Marmonte. So as we know more about that, we can share about that. But just to echo what Amber was saying, it is hard to get access for sure. I mean, I think we all have experienced this, even just in getting an appointment with a primary care physician, how long that takes, how long it takes to just get the medical care that we need. And especially since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, a lot of patients have been coming in from states like Texas and Arizona and Utah into our state to access care. And for the Planned Parenthood health centers in Las Vegas, we've seen a 32% increase in abortion care since the Dobbs decision and a 178% increase in out-of-state patients. So many more out-of-state patients. Right around the time of the decision, our wait time was around 28 days, which is a very long time, which is pretty unreasonable for folks that are looking to get an abortion. And currently our wait time has gone down to about 10 days. So it's getting better, but it's definitely still, with the influx of patients from out of state, still a huge struggle to get that access. And I'm sure Maria has seen that time and time again with the Wild West Access Fund.
If I may, Shelby, add a little bit here. Right? We have definitely seen it. And also from my own experience, I received an abortion. I want to say, I can't even remember, last year, 2 years ago. And it was actually right before the Texas ruling of the 6 weeks, right? So I called Planned Parenthood. I am so lucky that I know folks that work at Planned Parenthood, and I have that access, right? But not everybody has that access. And I called Planned Parenthood and I was like, hey, really want to schedule an appointment. And they were like, okay, well, our next appointment is 3 weeks from now. And I was like, no. And I honestly was obviously freaking out about it, not knowing how far I was and what any ruling was going to be released at any moment during that time. When I went in for my abortion, the Texas ruling went out probably the day after. And I was in shambles. I was 6 weeks and 2 days pregnant. And I remember thinking, had I been anywhere else in any other restrictive state, I wouldn't have this access, right? And I think that's what, and I know that's what people are currently still struggling with. And just the thought of, and luckily the wait time is obviously going lower and lower, but I think even a wait time is still a panic in anyone's mind, right? Because you sometimes do not know how far along you are, and you have to think about, what if it's too late? What if now, 3 days from now, I am no longer within the range of being able to do the pill? Now I have to get the medical abortion. That's a whole different cost on top of it. That's a whole different procedure on top of it. And that's you're putting your body through a whole different thing besides the pill, right? So that's something that we have seen. And I have definitely seen people just freak out. And every single right to do so about the wait times and about not being there on time.
Yep. And just speaking from experience, I'm currently 7 months pregnant, and I Had I not been obsessively testing like a weirdo, because this was a pregnancy that my husband and I, wanted, and we're actively working toward, there's really no symptoms, no signs until after 6 weeks. So in states that are instituting those really restrictive 6-week bans, a lot of women, it's already past the point where you can access that care. Going back to, I want to bring back in Abigail from Arizona, speaking of states that have a little bit more restrictive policies than Nevada. As an advocate for reproductive care, what are some of the challenges that you and our friends at Progress Arizona are facing as you're working to expand access? I know you guys have a kick-ass governor who has, stood by expanding abortion access, but what does that fight look like? Because I know you guys don't have a friendly legislature.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are very lucky to have Governor Katie Hobbs in office, and that's definitely thanks to the work of organizations and Arizonans who voted her in office, and Attorney General Chris Mays, and said no to all these a bunch of anti-abortion candidates that were running for statewide office last year. But even before the fall of Roe, in Arizona, folks were already having difficulties getting the care that they need. Before the 15-week ban, we have over 40 restrictions on abortion in Arizona. And obviously, like a lot of these problems, like wait times and payment and the different restrictions that we have, kind of compound together. But Katie Hobbs did recently unveil some new executive action to take the power from county prosecutors to prosecute abortions, and gave that power solely to our Attorney General Chris Mays, who is committed not to prosecuting abortions and to being an ally for abortion seekers and providers. So we're definitely supporting her. We're holding all of these extremist lawmakers in our state legislature accountable for pushing. This past session, they've been trying to sneak through fetal personhood bills. And while we know that Governor Hobbs will veto many of these bills, we're still doing the work to make sure that Arizonans are aware of like who the lawmakers are who are trying to take our ability to make our own healthcare choices for ourselves away from us. And at the same time, we know that if we did not have an anti-abortion majority in the legislature, if we had a pro-abortion majority in the legislature, we could proactively, be pushing for legislation that will actually help people instead of taking our rights away. Like making contraceptive care accessible all over Arizona. That is something that we could do if we had a pro-abortion majority in the legislature. So in addition to supporting and trying to elect lawmakers that are pro-abortion and will stand by us in this fight, and supporting Governor Hobbs and Attorney General Chris Mays, we are always supporting our partner organizations in Arizona who are focused on reproductive health care and reproductive justice, and supporting our local abortion fund and making sure that people are aware of that fund and how to support it, and of the resources that are available to them as we fight these bans and restrictions.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to bring it back home here to Nevada. Brianna, I'm going to go to you. What specific steps is Planned Parenthood Votes Nevada going to take to help to advocate for and support the implementation of bills such as SB 131 from Senator Canizaro? And how has your organization contributed to all of our state's achievements in the realms of protecting reproductive rights?
Yeah, so I think in this last legislative session, we did a lot of work to advocate for especially SB 131 and SJR 7. So as you mentioned, SB 131 is really the bill that codified Governor Sisolak's executive order that happened right after the Dobbs decision, which protects abortion providers and out-of-state patients as well. So that I think gives peace of mind to providers and folks like at the Wild West Access Fund who are helping folks from out of state get abortions in Nevada, and gives them that protection. And then SJR 7, which is a constitutional amendment, which we hope is going to be able to enshrine these rights into our Constitution. So that was a big priority of ours in this year so far, was making sure that those things passed and were signed and moved forward, which they have done, which is great. But in addition to that, we also need to be making sure that we're electing folks who are champions, because we wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't for the folks who passed this legislation and who will continue to pass legislation like this. So making sure that we are electing champions is a huge priority as well. And then also really having conversations about abortion and people sharing stories and reducing abortion stigma is really key at this point. I think a big part of the reason why we all ended up here with the Dobbs decision is we kind of stopped talking about abortion. Like, we had Roe and we had the right to privacy. And so people just stopped talking about it because it was kind of understood that this was the right. And with that, there was still a lot of stigma that remained in people, even supporters. And there is still now a lot of stigma, even in folks in the progressive movement and supporters. And so as much as we can share stories and talk about the rights explicitly, and not just as like a right to privacy, but as a right to abortion care, as a right to all aspects of reproductive freedom, be explicit about the fact that all people deserve to be able to determine if, when, and how they start a family. I think that changes the narrative too. So that's something we're trying to do too, is reduce that stigma, have those conversations, engage storytellers, so that as we move this movement forward, we're building it on something stronger than Roe, honestly.
Definitely. And what do you think that something stronger than Roe could look like, specifically here in Nevada or nationwide? What do you think is required in safeguarding reproductive rights and essential healthcare services?
Well, in Nevada, I think that this constitutional amendment will be something that is stronger than Roe, because it is an explicit right to access abortion care and to access birth control and prenatal care and postnatal care and infertility care and all of those things that you listed, Shelby. But as explicit as we can be in these pieces of legislation that we pass, or in the ways that we amend our Constitution, direct access to the right is important. And then also there's going to be a lot of legal challenges that I think emerge in the next few years based off of a lot of legislation that's passing, not just in Nevada, but in other states as well. And so we'll kind of see how these rights evolve, because with something like SJR 7, the constitutional right, that's just establishing a constitutional right. And then folks will have to litigate on that. And what does that right mean? And what is the scope of that right? So I think that's where we're going to see all of this play out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Maria, I'm going to come to you. Not only are you on the board of Wild West Access Fund, but you were also an attaché this last session while they were passing all of this historic legislation. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. What did it mean to you being in the legislature? I know you were the attaché for Assemblyman Max Carter, who we love. He's the best. What did it mean to you to be in the legislature as they're passing these historic pieces of legislation to protect our healthcare and abortion access rights as somebody who's accessed that care?
So thank you so much for the question. Definitely big shout out to Assemblyman Max Carter. Literally love him with all my heart. I think the experience is very unique, right? To being an attaché, because you have to be very nonpartisan. You have to be very like, you're calling my member and I have to deliver messages. Like, if you're saying something, I have to say it to them or say it to my member. And I think like I definitely received a lot of FOMO, not being in the nonpartisan, in the nonprofit spaces, but also like not being able to be really active in Wild West Fund during Wild West Access Fund during that time, because super worried about legalities, right? Like just making sure that I wasn't getting in trouble, that WWAF was also not getting in trouble. But it made me really happy to see like that there was this effort to like further codify, but also further protect people and also further protect me, right? Like as someone who is on the board for a fund that is providing this access, but also as someone who is undocumented, having to take that further step of like, what if this bill does not pass? And what if like state, like any state could receive this information from Nevada and it's like my name there as helping them, right? Like now it's also like my community is also in trouble, but then I feel like I'm also not doing enough for that fear of the fact that I might be outed as like helping them. And with this bill signing and with these amazing laws that were passed, it gives me more hope, but it also allows me to speak more freely as to, hey, you know what? Like, yeah, I am. And I was about to cuss. Oh my God, I stopped myself. Like, I am a board member of WWAF, and I am here to continue helping out my community. And while I did have to be very, very nonpartisan during the legislature, like, obviously still had my own opinions that I couldn't really share, but we did receive a lot of calls of like, this is just going to allow people to like sex trafficking, and there's going to be like, you're allowing sex trafficking in the state of Nevada. And it's like, how does reproductive health care remotely even tie to sex trafficking, right? Like, I'm not sure like where these talking points are coming from. So it was definitely very frustrating to say the least. And I think like, I definitely took a really big lesson and really obviously enjoyed the experience. And I really loved working for Assemblyman Max Carter because he was a big advocate for this too. And he was a big ally. But as someone that did receive these direct healthcare procedures and just was able to access them, it did hurt to hear what people were saying. And I was like, wow, had I heard this before, like, I don't know if I would have been able to so like upfront have said like, hey, yeah, like I have had an abortion. And I think like I am very lucky of my chosen family, my blood family and my friends and my community members that have uplifted not just myself, but other folks that have received abortions. And I think something that Brianna said was very true. I think we need to continue talking about the stigma about it. I think another thing is we're constantly always talking about like really religious people, right? Like, especially when it comes to abortion. And I grew up in a very religious in a really religious family. And my mom was like, hey, like if you ever need an abortion, like I'll be right there for you. Right. Especially after Dobbs, especially after Roe v. Wade. And I think like the more we talk about it, the more okay it becomes, not just within our community, but within our families too. And sometimes those very uncomfortable conversations need to happen.
Of course. I think my favorite sign that I've seen at a repro rally was I love somebody who's had an abortion, and you probably do too, because it is, you know, we need to empower folks that have access to that care to speak about it and to be louder about it in a way that feels safe and comfortable for them so that we can normalize accessing this care, because abortion is healthcare, plain and simple. Amber, I'm going to turn to you. You've been in this work a long time. As the interim communications director for BBP, what did it signal to you that Governor Lombardo was willing to sign SB 131 into law after he was so flip-floppy on whether or not he would hold up Governor Sisolak's executive order, and just in general about his stance on abortion?
So I wasn't super surprised that he didn't commit one way or another. I think from what I have heard, he was like that with multiple issues. And it was one of the first times in I don't know how many years people on the inside didn't know what he was going to vote for, even if they were Republicans. So I think it says a lot about his ability to legislate and his knowledge of the legislative process and also of politics in that capacity. It is different being a sheriff than it is being a governor, obviously. There are different political things at play when you are a governor or a state legislator even. So I think a lot of it had to do with that. But I also think that Republicans in general have seen because of the last election that abortion is a losing issue for them, especially with voters. I think that has been clear, and I think some of his push to do that probably has to do with knowing that he's going to come up for election in a few years, and that he's going to have to answer for things like SB 171, which was really not an expansion of rights in Nevada. It wasn't like some crazy bill that was going to mean everybody in the state had to have an abortion or that it was like anything crazy. So I think it politically for him, I think signing that bill is a way for him to help himself. As happy as I am that he signed it, and as grateful as I am that he signed it, I think there was more politics to it than there was belief in the ability or the right to have an abortion. So that's my take on it as somebody who is very jaded and has done this work a number of years.
Yes, definitely. Not the jaded part, but I appreciate your input as somebody who's done this work for a very long time. So speaking of governors, I am going to bring Abigail back in because you have the opposite of what we have. We have a Republican governor in a super blue legislature that we are very, very happy with as they push forward on progressive policies such as abortion. You have it the other way around. You have a great governor and a really restrictive legislature. Here in Nevada, abortion is really a bipartisan issue. We have support kind of across the political spectrum for abortion access. What does that look like in Arizona? You have a split governor legislature. Is abortion an issue that kind of runs the gamut of support, or is it still a very much progressive or liberal supported issue?
Yeah, I would say that at this point, abortion is an issue that is really important for voters in general, and I think we can see that with the fact that we did elect Governor Katie Hobbs, the first Democrat in many years, and she was a stark contrast to the other side's candidate for governor. And we do know that for the majority of Arizonans do agree that Arizonans should be able to make their own healthcare and family planning decisions for themselves. And unfortunately, we're not seeing that reflected in our extremist conservative legislature that has been pushing over 40 bans on abortion since 2009. And they were ready to go with the 15-week ban in preparation for the Dobbs decision. So I can definitely say that the extremism on abortion that we're seeing from the laws that are being pushed by the state legislature are not representative of Arizona as a state. Arizonans want their fellow Arizonans to be able to make their own healthcare decisions and to have the resources and access and support to do so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's so interesting to hear about what our neighboring states, what it looks like on the ground there, because we get so in our bubble and what it looks like here in Nevada. And it's awesome to hear your perspective. So thank you on that. Brianna, I'm going to come back to you. There's been a lot of talk at the federal level about instituting a stricter ban. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths, but I think one of the Republican candidates said that they would institute a total ban on abortion if they were voted into office. Looking at it from the federal level, what do you think needs to be done? I know we've had executive orders from President Biden to protect reproductive care and access to birth control. What more can be done now to safeguard this right in the future?
I think it's predominantly in states at this point. I mean, we really need to ensure that we are passing these pieces of legislations in states and electing people to state legislatures and to governor seats and even to school board and county commission and city council, where we know that those folks will eventually move up the ladder into higher positions of power in our states, who are champions. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's where the fight is going to be in the near future. Also, looking at court reform, with this Dobbs decision and with countless other decisions that have just come down this week, today even, the mifepristone decision that came down a few months back, which seeked to ban medication abortion, it is very clear that we cannot count on the Supreme Court to uphold our rights. And so where there are efforts to reform the court in various ways, I think that's something that is definitely important to look at. And we do obviously need to maintain power in the federal systems as well, even though it's clear that we can't count on Congress to save us here. We also know that there is a threat of a national ban. And so we have to do what we can to continue to elect our federal representatives as well, so that we can safeguard against that ban as well. And we have a presidential election, obviously, coming up in this next year. So a lot is going to be at stake in these next couple of election cycles, and it's really up and down the ticket.
Definitely. Maria, I'm going to come back to you. I know the Wild West Access Fund works to provide direct services. And as we're talking about, a very hopefully not going to be happening, hopefully not willing it into existence, scary future for abortion access. What is Wild West Access Fund doing to, broaden your reach? What can folks do to help? And how can folks support your abortion fund?
Thank you so much. Well, first of all, we're going to keep funding abortions. Number one. Number two, I think we are really trying to focus on reaching out to everybody, right? And I think that I know that comes in big perspective of having so many people with so many different backgrounds to be part of our board. And I think that that's the most important part, right? Like, if me as someone that is an immigrant, has gotten an abortion, is queer, like, and first of all, like, there's also like that stigma of being like queer and like getting an abortion, like it's like, what is going on, right? But there's like, not a single story is the same for any person. And we're going to continue to uplift that. We're going to make sure that our community and people that want abortions, people that can get pregnant and want abortions, are being heard. And that's really the most important part. And I think that obviously we're doing a great job at it, but that is me being a little biased. I do hope everyone thinks we're doing a great job. And really to further help the fund, you could follow us on social media at Wild West Fund Nevada on all socials. Also make sure that, you're reposting stuff. Like, educating people goes in many different ways. That was like a jumble of words, but it looks differently for people. And I know the best way to reach people that are my age is through social media, right? And I have friends from middle school, from high school that follow me on Instagram, and they're like, oh my God, like, I did not know that there was a fund that did this. Like, how can I further support? And it's like, one, follow us, repost us, so more people that do not know about this know about it. And also become a monthly donor if you're willing and able to. I think that that's like the biggest thing, right? Like I said earlier, abortions are not cheap. I unfortunately do not see abortions getting cheap anywhere in the near future. And we need to make sure that we're helping our working class, low income communities of color, our immigrant communities that aren't able to receive funding in any other way unless it's through a fund that is created for folks by folks, right? And I think that really is like my biggest thing, like really just become a monthly donor if you can. If you can't become a monthly donor, like any donation really makes a big difference in our fund. And there is times that we have our WWAF of Nevada fundathons. So that's always really fun. So that would be really the biggest way to continue supporting the Wild West Access Fund.
Awesome. So I'm going to do actually a round robin based off of that for all of you, just to get some closing thoughts, where we can find you, how we can support your work. Abigail, I'm going to go to you if you want to give any closing thoughts on what reproductive healthcare means to you. What work is Progress Arizona doing around this issue? I know you've already mentioned a lot. And then where can we find you on social?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my final thoughts are just that it's so important that we continue fighting back against these extremists that are trying to push their bans and their restrictions on us. Reproductive health care and abortion access is truly like life-saving care. And it's really important that we continue to support that and support our local funds, as Maria was saying, and other organizations in the state. And as far as Progress Arizona, you can find us at Progress Arizona on all social medias and at progressarizona.org. And we would love to keep in touch with you.
Awesome. We love our fellow Progress Now affiliates, so we were super stoked to have you on. It's great to get to know what's going on in Arizona, our neighbor. Brianna, I'm going to come to you next for some final thoughts, and then where can we find you? How can folks support?
Yeah. So you can find us at PP Votes Nevada on all social media platforms. Definitely get involved, sign up to become a volunteer. We can engage you in the work that we're doing around advocacy, around electoral work, around community organizing. And then the other things I would say is just vote, share your story, talk to people about abortion, and donate to the Wild West Access Fund.
Thank you. And Amber, we know where to find you on social, but what are your kind of closing thoughts around this issue?
Thank you. Yes, I think most folks know where to find me on social because that's our entire lives. I love that we had this conversation. I think it's an important conversation to continue having, especially the piece about access. I think we need to keep pushing that as much as we've been so strong about pushing keeping the right or expanding the right to abortion. Because it's very easy for us while it's super easy for us to lose the rights, it's also super, super difficult for people who are seeking abortions to actually get that service. So I think we need to keep focusing on that. I'm encouraged by everything that we've heard tonight. I'm also encouraged by the governor signing SB 131. I think that was a really good thing, especially as we've seen such a huge influx in patients here in Nevada due to restrictions in other states. So I'm encouraged about where we're going. And I do think that we're headed in the right direction despite the federal stuff that we are seeing. So I think the fight is in the states and we need to keep pushing forward.
Awesome. I know, Maria, you already told us where to find you, where to donate, but do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share as well?
Just thank you so much for having me, for having the Wild West Fund here. I think lastly, I just want to say, let's get comfortable saying the word abortion, right? And let's tell people to feel comfortable to say the word abortion, to say aborto in Spanish. I think especially and I know in my Latino communities, there's that stigma of oh my God, don't say aborto, do not say that. And I think the more that we say it, the more people are going to be comfortable and the more that people are going to feel welcome to volunteer, like Brianna said, to donate. Let's just get comfortable saying the word abortion in any and every language that we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Really means the world for you to take an hour out of your day and come chat with us about abortion, about the work that we're doing here on the ground to expand those rights. And again, I know tomorrow isn't its last day. We are very sad to be losing her, but she's on to bigger and better things. And I'm sure we'll hear all about the great work that she's going to go on to do because she's not going far, she's told us. So stay tuned and we will see y'all next week. Thank you so much.